There are people that come into our lives and completely change us. Maybe it's a teacher or coach who really believe in us and encourage us in ways our families haven't. Or maybe it's a friendship that starts under unusual circumstances or in a place you'd least expect. But that friend becomes someone who changes your life. That friend teaches you something about the world around you and teaches you something about yourself. That friend challenges you to do something radical, not in like a party hard way, but like the world-changing, community-building, life-altering way. Maybe it's that friend you can have real conversations with, you can speak life and truth to. Can you think of that friend? Now, what if that friend didn't even speak your native language? Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of StillBeingMolly.com. This show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just all-around amazing person who's trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. My guest this week is Amy Blair, the founder of Batik Boutique. After moving to Malaysia in 2007, Amy befriended a single mother who helped teach Amy the language, and through their friendship, conversations, and the opening of doors, Amy began Batik Boutique, a business with a vision to provide sustainable income opportunities for women and artisans in Malaysia. I loved my conversation with Amy, and I know you will too. By the way, if you're interested in checking out Batik Boutique, Amy has so generously given my listeners an exclusive coupon code of Molly20 for 20% off. That's batikboutique.com, B-A-T-I-K boutique.com. Now, on to the episode. Hey, Amy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Molly. Thanks for having me.
I am really excited that you are actually stateside. Not that I think it's bad when you're in Malaysia, but I think I'm excited that to talk with you stateside and be able to connect while you're here in the U.S. And I can't wait to hear all about you and your story and Batik Boutique. And you actually fly back to, by the time this airs, you will be back in Malaysia. But you fly back soon, right?
Yeah, in just about 4 days, I think we head back.
Oh my goodness. Now, how long have you been here right now?
I've been in Texas here for about 3 weeks.
Oh, okay, cool. Were you just coming back to come back and visit, or were you coming back for, fun or work?
A little bit of all of that. I had a baby 6 months ago, my third child.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so thank you. And my parents had actually not met her yet. And so part of what we came back for is to connect with our family. And also I meet with some of our clients that we manufacture for and sell products to here in the U.S. So it's kind of all connected.
That's awesome. Well, I love following Batik Boutique online, and I cannot wait to hear all about you and how you got involved. So, Amy, I'm going to have you do what all my guests do, and that's give us the Amy 101. So tell us your story. Where are you from? How'd you grow up? And what are all the things that led you to starting Batik Boutique? And give us the elevator pitch for what Batik Boutique is.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Texas, and I went to school at Texas A&M. That seems like many, many years ago now.
I
met
my
Aggies. Husband there. Yeah, gig 'em. And I had a degree in communication and tourism. And one of the things I did after I graduated was I traveled the world actually for a ministry, and I helped different churches connect globally and help them know about how to be culturally sensitive and other cultures in different contexts. And I just really loved it. I love people, and it's just the way I've been wired, where I want to see what makes people tick, why did they make decisions that they make? Why did they think the way they do? It's really fascinating to me. So I've always just been in love with different cultures and thought maybe someday I'll do something more with that. And then if you fast forward till about 2007, my husband and I, married 2 years, newlyweds, kind of no children yet. We had this opportunity to move to Malaysia with some family friends of ours to open a regional training office there. So it seemed like a good idea. We lived on an island actually in Malaysia, which sounded even better.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we worked there for a couple of years, and he did a master's degree, and we both learned, we just dove right in. We just wanted to eat what they eat, to wear what they wear, to understand everything we could about their context and the culture and the language. And so I think that really impacted us because as Americans, we had never really truly learned another language. I mean, we took Spanish, I think, in high school, but that didn't get, I probably couldn't have carried on a conversation with anyone still. So this was a really unique opportunity, and I fell in love with just the whole thing. And we started a family there, and kind of one thing led to another, and we found ourselves moved to the capital, which is Kuala Lumpur. And at the time, I was staying at home with our 1-year-old, and my husband was working there. And an opportunity came up where I met a single mom who lived literally 5 minutes down the road from me. And she was a local woman. She's Malaysian, and she was needing extra income and work. But I didn't really have any extra work for her, except I thought, oh, maybe she can help me learn the language more. She can, teach me Bahasa, Malaysia is the language. So she came over every day, and we just sat around the table drinking tea and talking. And my son, became really close to her because we don't have family, in the context there.
Yeah.
And along the way, as I began to understand her language and her heart more, I began to understand her struggles. So she was a single mom. Her husband had left, and he had remarried, and she was left, with these kids to take care of by herself. And she was working really hard all hours of the day, but yet she was in this cycle that, just I couldn't see how she could get out of it just by what she was currently doing.
Yeah.
So as we became friends, I mean, really, this is where Batik Boutique started, was out of a friendship with this woman, and her name's Anna. And when Anna began telling me, some of her struggles, I began thinking, well, what can she do? Like, what else could she do? And I thought first, like, well, could she bake? Like, could she make some cookies? Can I sell them to my friends? Like, what's some way I can tangibly help her? And that's when I found out that she had a sewing machine. And so previous to this, I had worked, when we first lived on the island, I worked in tourism, and we, part of what I did was I did reviews for resorts and hotels. Mm-hmm. And I realized that something in Malaysia, we have artisans and crafters, and people are highly skilled in their art, but I saw this gap in the market from getting what they can do and their skill set to the end product that's actually sold. Yeah. So I always thought someone should do something about that, like to provide a quality souvenir. Yeah. So when I remembered my friend had this sewing machine, we merged the two, and then we used this fabric called Batik, which is a hand-blocked fabric from Malaysia. And so that's literally the beginning of Batik Boutique, was really spurred from this project that I just wanted to help a friend of mine out. And It seemed logical to use Batik, and it seemed logical because she had a sewing machine. So there we were.
So, and you said the fabric you got from the market, or sorry, I didn't understand where you started getting the actual raw materials.
Well, that's a funny story. So originally, I mean, I didn't know anything about textiles. My background was I did trainings and, customer service and facilities, improvement. So here I am. And so at first, she and I just went downtown, we live, in the capital. We went downtown to this area that sold just different, it was like fabric stores. Yeah. And I thought I was buying what was batik because of the motifs on them. So we just picked up whatever we thought was kind of pretty and looked Malaysian. Fast forward, when I really wanted to start the business and use batik, since we named ourselves Batik Boutique, then I realized I was actually buying machine-produced fabrics that are digitally printed, and they're not actually the authentic batik. But again, most people didn't even know. I mean, even Malaysians sometimes don't know the difference. So I ended up going on this huge trip. I connected with people who are on the east coast of Malaysia. That's where most of the fabric is actually blocked and printed. And I went out. My friends just took me there. I remember standing in a rice field with my husband, and now I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. He was my 1-year-old strapped on my chest, and we're standing in the middle of this big rice field, and someone said, oh, it's out there. This factory, quote, factory is out there. And I looked out in the distance, and there's this wooden village house. And I'm thinking, how in the world are they making anything there? So we just literally walked out there. There were a couple of times where I'm like, if my mom knew where I was right now, she might not like this, but there we go with our 2 little babies. And we just went on this big journey throughout Malaysia on the East Coast, looking for suppliers, looking for vendors. We connected with most of Batik is produced in family-run businesses. So we just connected with families, and it's mostly done it's in their house is one of the buildings, and then next to it they build some other kind of shed type thing for the blocking, and then you need lots of space to dry the fabrics and to boil them off. And so they're just done in the villages there. So we went and we just made relationship and friendship with people, and so that's how we originally got started.
That's so cool. Now, for people that don't know, what is batik and how is it done? And tell us a little bit what you know about the history of batik and how it works.
Well, batik is specific to Southeast Asia. So it originated in Indonesia area. So it's Javanese. And it's a type art form that's done. Other countries and regions do a similar form. Some even call it batik. But what's unique about the process that we do is compared to like in India where they use a block and ink and they stamp on fabric.
Yeah.
What we're doing, it's a similar method, but it's more complicated actually. So we take these blocks, these stamps, and you dip them in melted wax, and then you like stamp them in a repetitive pattern on top of the fabric that you're using, and then you would paint them on top of that. So it's done in layers. And so sometimes you would dye a solid piece first and then block the wax on top and then paint again and then block wax on top. And then whenever you finish with that and it dries, you have to boil off the wax. And it's like candle wax in a sense, it's from a beeswax. And it boils off, and it's a wax resist. So what's left underneath the wax is the original color or the layer of color that you put on. So Malaysians love colorful things, and the more colorful the batik, actually, the more complicated the process.
Wow.
And,
That's so cool. And it's always when I learn about stuff like that, especially in other cultures, I go, how did they figure out to do that? Exactly. What was some person back when batik, when it was invented, however long ago, they were just like, oh, let me put this wax on here with some dye. How would you even think to do that? I'm fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they use, it originated from natural dyes in particular, so they were boiling leaves. And the thing is in Southeast Asia and that region, it's tropical, right? So most of the inspiration, there's another type, it's kind of like this, it looks like a pipe, and you put the wax in it and you draw with it, which is even more complicated than the stamping and the blocks. And more time consuming. So a lot of the inspiration, if you'll look at actual Malaysian or Indonesian batik, you'll see inspiration coming from nature, because I think really they were inspired by these natural dyes and their drawings and things they developed. Often it will be flora or fauna. Sometimes there's, butterflies or things like that too, but it's inspired from the region around them.
That's so cool. So I know you guys started in 2013. Obviously, you mentioned that you guys moved to Malaysia in 2007. So, what did that look like in the early days when you said that you met your friend Anna, and you saw this opportunity to help your friend. At what point did you think, okay, I think this is going to be my business and I'm going to really pursue this? And what did those early days of starting the business look like?
Yeah, well, I met Anna in 2010. So we sort of dabbled in, can you make this? Can you make that in 2011, 2012? And I was just like giving things away to my friends and family, like for Christmas. And she was sort of my gift supplier. And that's how we started. And then she introduced me actually to other single moms and other women who had a lot of kids, like 7 kids, who live in these 1 and 2 bedroom apartments in the same, area of town that she lives in. And they all had a similar need, and they all had a sewing machine. And so I became really burdened for like thinking, how can this be happening like 5 minutes down the road from where I live? And I want to do something about that. So at the first it was a few of us ladies in their flats and between my house and theirs, and going to little button and ribbon shops, and that no one ever had enough stock of anything we wanted, or if they had it one day they didn't have it the next day, and remember, I know nothing at this point about textiles or even manufacturing for that matter. So I was like, what brand of zippers, and what is that? What is this seam? I mean, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So we just were on a big learning curve, and it was very cottage industry like. I mean, it was very organic from my house, from theirs. She would drop off things at 10. Anna who introduced me to another lady, Noor, would come to my house at like 10 o'clock at night with like 3 kids on her motorbike, and drop something off she had made, and we should come in for tea, and the kids played with my kids' toys, and then they went home. And so that was very much our early days, and I didn't know even things about price points and, how much to pay, what was fair and this and that. So we would just sit around and ask each other conversations like, well, how much do I need to pay you for this? And, well, how much do we sell this for? And so it was in the midst of all that when I think it was actually my husband who, remember we had at that time like a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so at this point, he's like, Amy, it's really noble what you're doing. It's great that you're trying to help these ladies, but it's midnight and this is like the, 13th night in a row. It's midnight and you're in here tying ribbons and bows, and like, what are you doing? And he's like, and he has an MBA, which was very helpful in all of this.
Yeah.
And he said, I think you should like take a step back and consider either you go back to just helping them when you can, and this is in a sense like a hobby of yours, or I think you need to think through what type of business model you want to put around this and actually go for it.
Yeah.
So he challenged me at that point to consider what I wanted to do. And so this is in now about 2013. And I decided, all right, well, I think there's actually genuine interest in this. I'm really like, if I'm going to live this far away from everything I know and all of my family and friends, then it needs to be for a good reason. So let's if I'm going to be here, then let's do something that matters and that makes a difference. So that's when I decided to start it as a business. And we've defined ourselves as a social enterprise and registered our company in Malaysia. And that's how everything started going.
That's so amazing. So, I mean, you guys have been around, 5 years now. I mean, and it's just amazing. And you've been there 10 years. I mean, can you believe that it's been that long?
Yeah. Last week was our 10-year Malaysia-versary, we call it. And that's pretty wild to think through. Like, we literally like left everything we knew 10 years ago. And here we are.
That's amazing. So in the early days, what were some of the products you guys were making in the early days? And obviously, how has that evolved over time?
I think our first product was a set of coasters. And so that had straight lines. And we got really fancy once and added a little pouch to it, which took us a long time to sample. And then I think we branched out. We did a scarf because that was a straight line. And we did aprons. Because I thought that was gifts I could give to like my mom and her friends at the time. And then because I was having kids in this season of life, we started doing baby slings and things like that. So those were some of our first products. We still carry coasters, but they're a lot better these days, let me tell you. The lines are actually straight.
Everything that you guys make is just so beautiful. So what does the design process look like now? Are you, do you just kind of mesh sort of the inspiration of what you think is popular, quote unquote popular, or will sell very well in America versus kind of giving the artisans some of their own free reign for design ideas? Or what does that process look like now?
Well, now in our studio, I have a team of 7 people, most of whom are local Malaysians, and one who has studied in Canada. She studied design, and another one who studied in Australia. And so that's really helpful because they've actually seen things in another context.
Yeah.
One of the things we struggle with our artisans is that they're from villages on the East Coast. So even sometimes things they want to do compared to just the capital city is already a lot different. So then imagine from developing nation to like first world fashion, is a big leap.
Completely.
So we tend to, we try to do things that are classic and that are not as trendy and, things that are a little more timeless that can end up being staple products. That's something that you want to, keep using or keep wearing. And we've tried to tone down a few of the layers and the colors of some of what's natural for our artisans. At the same time, we're also trying to highlight what it is. We want to be true to the art form of what it is. So, our team now, we just, when we want to do a new collection, we, have a planning process where we do, swatches and we do sampling a lot like most other design houses. So that's, we've progressed a ton since that point. Just this last season, we finally started adding some different like PU leathers and canvas and, other types of materials that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but some of the struggle of living in even in a big city, but it's still a developing nation, is finding accessories and materials, that you want to use. And we're also trying to be as eco-friendly or sustainable as we can, which is not really a concept that's highlighted right now in Malaysia.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is this something that you've had either easier-ish time with, or a little bit more of a challenge as far as, when you really have begun expanding and you've added more artisans and, you're working with families in rural Malaysia where they're actually creating, the textiles and the fabrics and all of that, as you've kind of grown this, has it been a challenge or has it been easy, or what has that been like to kind of explain what you're doing and why you're doing it a certain way? Because, obviously you guys are very much, I don't like to use this cliche phrase, but it's the only thing I can think of to say it, but like kind of bucking the trend, especially probably with how other things are done in Malaysia, and surrounding countries and cultures like that. A lot of fast fashion is made in Malaysia. So, what does that look like for you guys?
Well, let me preface all of this to tell you that Batik Boutique is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I like a good challenge, and I've developed a lot of perseverance from living in another country and another culture for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I think in the early days, it was really funny. On the artisan side, I would go and say, like, can you do this? I would be literally in like the shack somewhere, and there's hundreds, maybe even thousands. I mean, there's so many of these blocks just hanging on the wall, on the ground. They haven't used them in 30 years. Like, what? And I would just love it. I would go in there and just stick it into wax and see what it looked like. And so I would find the random block I would like, and I would say, okay, can you do this in black and white? Like, black is one layer. You stamp it and then you dip it in the black. It's done. Yeah. And they would look at me like, why? Like they could not believe that I actually just wanted black and white, and they're like, oh, and they would tell me in the local language, like, that it's not nice. It's not pretty if it's like that. And I was like, the whole wide world, they love black and white.
Yes, it's true.
Or gray, or something. And so it took them a while. I mean, on one level, this is where I think being a foreigner was easier at some level, because they already expected everything about me. They laughed at everything I did. So, and they thought I was odd. But Malaysians are very accepting and curious and, generous people. So I think I could get away with it a bit because they were like, well, she's already a little bit crazy. So, and then, and over time, when they would see that we keep reordering, or, we have a larger order for them and things that they've, now I think nowadays they don't bat their eye at anything I request from them.
Yeah.
On the product side, so in Malaysia, batik is really popular and it's mostly used for clothing. So you have one thing you need to know about batik is you have to use 100% fibers. Mm-hmm. So you can't use like a polyester. It has to be like cotton, 100% cotton, 100% silk.
Yeah.
And those materials cost more, just raw fabric wise, than blended fabrics or synthetic. So so it's used a lot here for clothing, especially formal wear and on high-end silks. I mean, you see some of the most beautiful, it's like artwork, but it's a dress. So when my local friends started seeing that I wanted to make, coasters or table placemats or homewares, from this fabric, they looked at me like, maybe she doesn't know, maybe she doesn't know this is like, for clothes or something. And so a few of the ones I kind of chuckle now, because a few of my friends and my local friends who used to kind of give me a hard time about what we were doing, now their homes are decked out in our homewares. And so I think we're in a lot of ways we're bucking the system everywhere. We're trying to do something that's changing a mindset of artisans that really helps them progress and grow. We're trying to challenge the retail, and we're trying to help Malaysians be proud of what their heritage and their culture is. And we're also trying to push against fast fashion and pay people fair wages and be kind to the environment, and all of that's bucking the system in every market that we're in.
Hey, I know you are loving this conversation with Amy, but I want to take a quick break from talking with Amy and let me tell you about the awesome company that is helping to make this show possible. Our sponsor today is Sevenly. Sevenly was founded in 2011 with the mission of leading a generation toward generosity. Based on the core belief that people matter, the Sevenly team created a cause art movement consisting of 7-day cause campaigns, inviting customers to purchase advocacy art, apparel, and accessories that donate to nonprofits. Now widely recognized as one of the world's leading social good companies, to date, Sevenly has given back over $5 million to charities around the world. This holiday season, Sevenly is excited to offer you the opportunity to give back while also giving gifts to your loved ones. Check out their signature collections at sevenly.org and give back to the charity of your choice. Use the coupon code MOLLY10 for 10% off through the month of November. That's sevenly.org, sevenly.org, and use that coupon code MOLLY10 for 10% off during the month of November. And if you haven't heard my interview with the co-founder of Sevenly, Jim Van Erden, you can go back and listen to episode 53 to hear it. It was one of my favorite episodes to date, and I know you will love it. Now, back to my conversation with Amy. So when you started Batik Boutique, were you passionate about ethical fashion? And was this something that you knew a lot about? Or was it kind of after the fact that you realized that this is a whole industry that's growing and changing and moving? You know, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about ethical fashion. I mean, I never thought that far. I think I just never thought about it, you know? And so the way I started Batik Boutique was out of wanting to make impact. Mm-hmm. So I like Batik, and I mean, I love it now, but it's not like I even came at it from an art or design perspective or fashion at all. I came at this scope much differently than a lot of brands come at it. I came at it specifically wanting to bring impact to a community in need, to at-risk women, and wanted to create a business model around that. Since I've then learned many, many things about dyes and fabrics and design and, you know, all of this, and really started understanding, one of the biggest partners that we work for is called Raven and Lily, based here in Texas.
I love Raven and Lily.
Yeah, so we actually are their Malaysia partners. So anything you buy from them that says that it's from the Malaysia collection is from Batik Boutique.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was actually my exposure with them and like how particular they were about the type fabrics they wanted and how much they wanted to know about, you know, how much people were paid and all of this, that it really led me on a journey of trying to understand the same things, because I knew we were being fair to people. That's non-negotiable for me. You know, I knew we were being like very generous, and but I then started understanding the impact of fashion and apparels in particular, you know, on the environment and the chemicals that we use. And I think also as a mom of children, that was more interesting to me and concerning too, because I'm thinking about what world are we creating, you know, for the next generation, for our kids, both on a purpose and like life, you know, calling, but also on like what earth are we leaving for them, you know?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. How has that continued to evolve, like your passion and your drive for it, especially being in Malaysia? You know, because I can only imagine that it's maybe a little bit more difficult to shop like 100% ethically in Malaysia, or maybe, or is it easier? I mean, you know, how have your own buying habits changed over there?
Well, I think, it's pretty non-existent here. There's things you can do. Like I do it more on like what you can be more sustainable in is like, purchasing like produce and, you know, foods and stuff. So like I try to buy directly from farmers, things like that. We grow a lot of our own, you know, produce here, animal products, that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, obviously I wear a lot of clothing from Batik Boutique. We don't manufacture a lot of clothing, but I have certain things made for me, you know, when we have remnants of fabric, because we are trying to be low waste as well. Yeah. So we don't actually throw fabric out. That's why we make smaller products. We've created lines that are accessory pieces. So we might have like a key fob or, you know, a passport holder or a small pouch or wallet, because we can use the remnants for that. And so we try to be, you know, as resourceful as we can. So yeah. And then I generally shop things when I'm back here. I mean, I just was at Raven and Lily for a meeting, and they were having a great sale, and I just picked up a bunch of new things from them too. So I think it's trying to look around us and say like, okay, you know, I realize maybe I can't do everything right now that is ideal to me, but I can do something. I can change some habits. So, and in Malaysia, it's a little more challenging, but I think, it's doable.
Yeah. Has your, like you said, that your why in the beginning was that you wanted to help your friend. How has that changed and shifted as you've grown Batik Boutique? Like, what is your why the same today as when it started, or what gets you up in the morning and motivates you each and every day to do what you do? And like you said, and this is common among all entrepreneurs, is business is hard and running a business is hard, but especially in this space. And especially, I'm amazed by the fact that you have 3 kids and you're running this company in Malaysia as well. So, what is it? What's your why today? And has that changed at all since you started?
I think my why has not changed at all. I think I've realized a few things. For a couple of years when I was first doing this business, I'll call myself a purist. And I don't know if that's real a term or not. I just made this up, but it's how I process it. I was really insistent on on certain things. And it had certain products had to be sewed just by these women, and it had to be like this and it had to be like that. And I got to the point where I realized, because of the limitations and some of the different issues that we face, socially and culturally in Malaysia, if I really wanted to make impact for this group of people and more, then certain things had to compromise. And so I kind of went through this other process where I also didn't want to sell out and not be true to everything that I, started it for. So I struggled a few months, and I went through with a mentor of mine and a business coach and kind of processed how could we have the most impact, and then what are some of my non-negotiables? What will I not do, And I think if as an entrepreneur, you have to pivot, you have to be willing to change. That's good. That's part of evolving and growing. But I think you also have to keep in mind, why am I doing this? And what are a few things? That list should be pretty short too, but what are a few things I'm not willing to compromise on? Yeah. And then I realized for us, if I really want to make impact, I need to think through what's the best way to do that. So now we work with various groups in Malaysia. We can take on more orders. So I wouldn't take certain orders if our production was full, but we've expanded our reach there. So we have more artisans to work with. And, and I know the ins and outs of the pay of the other people that we're working with, and, just things like that. How can I actually scale the business side? Because the more business we have, the more, we give benefits to the women that we work with who sew for us. They get childcare. We teach financial literacy programs to them. We've done things for their kids. We've done dental treatments. And the better our business is and the more profit we have, the more of these type programs we can run that really do benefit them. So you have to think sort of just bigger than, maybe the first model you set out to do.
That's so cool. Now, I know that your husband in the last couple of years, he came on with you full time.
He did. He did. I think he's on his way out again, but he has been with us full time.
That is awesome. And so what kind of spurred that? And I know you said that he was okay, you're up to midnight every night. Was it just something that he kind of decided that he wanted to join you, or what was that decision-making process like?
Well, we tried one time in the early days to work together because I was basically begging. And then, and he did, and it just didn't work. It was kind of odd. And I think some of it for him was at that time, it was just a bunch of women, and he's sort of what am I doing? And we didn't have as much growth in the business. So a lot of what I needed help in was more of admin, and he's not the administrative part of our marriage or family. So it was sort of none of this is a fit. But he was willing to help. And so then he was working at another company at that point. And as we grew and I was able to start hiring our staff, we got to a point where we needed some more of the skill sets that he had. And so one night we were having a long, heart to heart, what are we really about? Kind of big picture conversation. And I said to him, if you could do anything, what would you do? If just what do you want to do? And he said, if I could do anything, I would help a small team of people who've started something that really matters, and I would help them scale and grow. And thank you.
Does he realize what he knows what he said?
Yeah. So I laughed and I said, oh, I've got the perfect solution for you. So, and it was interesting because I think, there's timing in our life. There's conversations that have to happen. There's things we all have to go through. And I think it just happened to be really at that season. It was a good time for us. And he saw the business differently then. He saw it more as this, he saw it as more than it was before, which was this hobby, and this thing I was doing, on the side.
Yeah.
And he saw the potential it could have, and he saw the work and, the sweat equity I put in there. And so he came on board, and it was just a totally different experience this time. So he's actually been with us the past 2 years. And in these 2 years that he's been with us, our revenue has doubled 2 years in a row, which is pretty incredible.
It's amazing.
And we've trained more women. Last year we trained 25 women from this flats area that we worked with, and we've worked with more artisans. I think we're like almost 180 artisans, and there's just capacity building and things that he was able to take on some of the business development and backbone stuff to let me then do the things that I'm good at too. And so it's been a really, really sweet time for us, and a really good time. Yeah, so
that's so cool. I love that. And I love how he didn't even realize he was setting himself up for his own job description.
I know. I've got a plan for you.
But hey, you didn't know that this is what you always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, I would love for you just to kind of share, what is it like? Because I'm a mom to 2 kids. My daughter is 4 and my son is, goodness, so he was born in February 2016. So he's a little over a year and a half old. And, what is it like raising young kids in Malaysia? Like I have to know, like what is it like there? Do you everything from, I'm curious, like everything from, do you see, like a Malaysian doctors or midwives, OBGYNs, to the care to, what's it like, do they play with the kids in the neighborhood? What does that all look like?
Yeah, well, it's definitely progressed in the last 10 years. I mean, that's like developing nations just are developing so quickly compared to first world, So like, I mean, it's very different. My oldest son is 8 and my youngest is 6 months. So it's actually been a lot different of an experience with that as well. But Malaysia is great. Like I actually say to most people who are in my season of life, I like living here during this season. There's a lot more affordable help. Like with childcare, I have a woman who helps me cook and clean, and I have, like a part-time nanny for my daughter so that I can work, and she's a lovely woman. And, it's at a rate that it's not even like, affordable for, I couldn't have that lifestyle so much here ever.
Yeah.
It's actually what empowers me to be able to do anything I do. And the culture, people really love children there, and they generally have a lot of children. So, they have around still, like our generation, like anybody, I'd say like 40 and under, came from big families because a lot of them were still in the villages at that time. And so then urbanization has happened. I mean, and I'm talking like 10 siblings, like big families. Yeah. So now they do, quote, small families, which is like 4 to 5 kids.
Yeah.
Small families. So small families. So because of that, everyone loves kids. And my doctor's I've had 3 different doctors because we lived in 3 different places each time the kids were born. Yeah. But I've had a great experience at everywhere. I mean, it's different. We live in Kuala Lumpur. We call it KL. In KL now, I mean, this is, 10 years into it.
Yeah.
It's state of the art, like medical care. I mean, my husband's had LASIK surgery there. We've had, my birth experiences have been awesome. I mean, people sometimes ask me, well, how does that compare to, having a baby in America? And I'm like, I don't actually know.
Yeah. Because you've had all your children over there.
Yeah. But my kids, they're normal kids. They all go to like local preschool at first. And so they can learn to speak Mandarin and Bahasa. And then they're very much involved in the local culture. They love to celebrate we've got lots of diversity in Malaysia in particular, even compared to other countries. Yeah. So we've got Chinese, Malay, and Indian, and they actually all 3 have a different religion attached to them. So there's each one has their own like set of holidays, and Malaysia celebrates all of those. And so, there's traditional wear for each one of them, and my kids wear all the clothes and they like all the food, and
that's so cool.
For them, I've had to realize it's interesting because one of the things I've had to grieve a bit as a mother, I think, being from, America, is that I was expecting there's certain things when you become a mom, you think you want your kids to experience, and a lot of that for me was like, oh, like I had, or this was what I remembered, a happy memory about childhood. I'd love my kids to have that. And so a lot of that doesn't totally translate into my context. And so it took me several years actually to really like come to terms with, are they okay? Or like, are they missing out? Or, this FOMO came in.
Yeah.
Are they going to be normal? Like, are they going to understand things? And so I've really come to terms with now and all of that. I think we're offering them this really amazing life. Like, I don't even think they know how cool their life is right now.
Yeah.
And I hope one day they'll appreciate it.
So are they all like, I mean, well, obviously the baby's 6 months old, but your older two, are they fluent in all three languages, English, Mandarin, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Malay.
Yeah. I wouldn't say fluent, but they still take it at school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they can carry on a basic conversation with people there.
Yeah. Now, how has it been? How has it been? Everything from making friends. Do you make friends with just kind of anybody that you're in your neighborhood with? I'm also curious. Like, have you been able to connect with other maybe Americans that are there working, or is it just kind of you guys really, like you said, when you and your husband moved there, you were like, we're gonna eat the food, we're gonna learn the language, we're gonna wear the clothes, like we're gonna learn as much as we can. What has that looked like for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also been really diverse and progressed over the years. When we first moved, we lived in a smaller town, and so many people didn't speak English. So that was where the thrust came from, like, well, if I'm going to live here, then I better learn how to talk to them.
Yeah.
So that was actually great for our language learning process because it's much easier when you're immersed in a context for that. So, and we literally would go out to like food courts. People eat out a lot at like food stalls and on the street and things. So we would just, go out there and like try every food and just strike up conversations with random friends. And then through some of my work and some of my husband's studies, like we'd meet people along the way. So in that context, like I'd say literally all of our friends were local. There also just weren't very many foreigners 10 years ago in the city. So then, I mean, if you fast forward to now, we have a very interesting life with our kids. They go to it's a British international school. So their teachers generally are from the UK or Australia, and they have local teaching assistants. And about half of the school are Malaysian kids, and the other half are expats and people, just doing different work like us here. So it's very diverse. I mean, I think their school has almost 60 different nationalities represented and like 900 kids, and so my life now is it's just extremely global. We've got friends from all over the world. And along the way, it's really funny. I've got a few Aggie friends there now, which is fun because I haven't had that ever in the past. And I'm like, how did you get to Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah.
So we've got that, like Molly, my friend Molly that you've met. She's an Aggie too. So it's really fun. And then we actually go to a church here in the city that's a church plant out of the UK. And so a lot of people going there are expat as well with different projects and companies they're working with. And then, majority are still Malaysian. So I'd say our life is very international now compared to our early days. I'm really appreciative it was that way in the early days because it helped me really connect and adjust and understand deeply like the culture and the people. But I'm also really thankful in this season of life that, we just have exposure from people of all different places. And that's just like a really awesome opportunity.
Oh, yeah. And like you were saying, I mean, the things that you're teaching your kids just through life is that's so cool. I just think it's amazing. And I just think, your kids are going to grow up and whether they decide to stay in Malaysia or wherever they end up in the world, like, I mean, they're just going to have such an amazing experience and an amazing childhood under their belt that's going to be so unique and give them so much just knowledge and wisdom. You know what I mean? Like that's going to, I think, really put them in a different place than their peers.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're cute now that they're getting older. Like I've noticed this trip in particular, they're really processing they're asking me things on signboards and, on this highway that I I just like I don't even notice them. I take for granted because I've seen them my whole life, and I realize like now that they can read, they're asking me questions. I'm like, huh? Or they'll say, my oldest son right now is in a stage where he really wants to identify with his roots in Texas. And, so it's really fascinating to sort of watch them process the world, through their eyes. And it's super unique. But I think it's a great opportunity.
I think that's so cool. Amy, it has been so fun getting to talk to you, and I really love hearing how you made the best of a situation where you just kind of were like, I'm here, I'm doing this. And then you saw an opportunity to make a change. And so I think it's so cool what you're doing. And I love connecting with you. And the products that you guys put out there are just beautiful and so unique. And so I just can't wait to continue to see everything that you guys, put out in the future and how the business continues to grow and the lives that you're impacting. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Molly, thanks for having us or me. And thank you for helping share our story. It's really great to help people get connected on the U.S. to see how they can support and get involved and just know more of the inside of what we're doing. So thanks for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. And for everybody listening, I am going to make sure to have all of the links to how to connect with Batik Boutique in the show notes. But you guys, it's batikboutique.com correctly, and that's BATIK. boutique.com, and you can shop their beautiful, beautiful, beautiful items. Seriously, they make, so here as we are heading into the holiday season and you're like, I want to get my friend or my mom or my sister a really unique gift, this is the place that you definitely need to check out. Because like you said, so much of what you guys carry is just so classic. And, especially even some of the home kind of, the table linens and things like that. Like, those are the types of things that become heirlooms. Well, Amy, thank you so much. Like I said, it was a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Molly.
I just loved this conversation with Amy. I was so encouraged by her story. And honestly, it really kind of made me want to pack up my things and move to another country. I don't think that's going to happen, but you know what I mean. I can't wait to continue to watch what Amy and Batik Boutique do to develop these artisan partnerships in Malaysia and the opportunities that she's going to continue to create for these amazing people. Don't forget to use that coupon code of Molly20 for 20% off at batikboutique.com. That's BATIK boutique.com. And I'll have all the links in the show notes for you as well. And thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you're a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring amazing entrepreneurs and business owners who are literally changing the world with their businesses. And if you're a regular listener of the show, thank you for tuning in and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Radio Public, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you are subscribed to the show. Clicking that subscribe button makes sure that you never miss a new episode of the show. And while you're there, would you mind taking a moment to leave a review of the show? Leaving a review of the show helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. Reviews also help to show other potential listeners what the show's all about. And if you share the show on social media, be sure to use the hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast or tag me at Still Being Molly on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Another huge thank you to our sponsor to this week's podcast, Sevenly. Be sure to use that coupon code Molly10 for 10% off on your purchase through November. Visit them at sevenly.org. That's SEVENLY.org. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.